Hi, this is Pam from Patient Advocate Match, and we are here with one of our healthcare professionals that is a current listing of ours. And I just want to let you know, we have many healthcare professionals that offer services that maybe you haven't heard about. And today is probably one of those services. And I'm really excited to introduce you to Janet Kieslich. She's a family nurse practitioner, and she is able to get DNA testing for health. And I'm not going to try and go ahead and explain it. So I'm going to turn this right over to Janet. And Janet, share what impact or how this can help people improve their health.
So functional medicine is really up and coming. And if you've heard about DNA testing, nutrigenomic DNA testing, the Human Genome Project has come out, and if you will, people are usually familiar with medical genetic testing, like the BRCA gene, for instance, the breast cancer genes, Lynch syndrome, which could be colon cancer. But for those of you interested in wellness, say, I have a real difficulty time dropping my weight. I just ache all over. I find myself not thinking as clearly or not sleeping as well. There are so many benefits to understanding where your genes and those snips on your genes could be possibly affecting you just from a general wellness standpoint. So I hope through our presentation today to make an impact on whether or not one would like DNA health testing. Do you want me to go ahead, Pam?
Yep, go right ahead, Jan.
Okay. All right. So just got to hit play. And moving on. This is the sunrise that I did a little relaxation in Punta Cana. So here we are. What is DNA? Deoxyribonucleic acid. We probably all learned that in our basic science classes way back when, if you're as old as I am, is the hereditary material in humans and almost all other organisms. Nearly every cell in a person's body has the same DNA, except about 1% were different. The information in DNA is stored as a code made up of 4 chemical bases: adenine, guanine, cytosine, and thymine. So AGCT. So through your DNA testing, you'll see these combination of alleles. And these DNA bases pair up with each other, A with T, C with G, to form units called base pairs. So these are what makes that helical ladder when we talk about DNA. So what are single nucleotide polymorphisms, or SNPs, on your DNA health test through Nordic Laboratories, which is provided to providers who want to give a wellness background to how one can help their health. They look at genetic SNPs, or these single nucleotide polymorphisms. So they are a genetic variation among people. Each SNP represents a difference in a single DNA building block called a nucleotide. For example, a SNP may replace the nucleotide cytosine with the nucleotide thymine in a certain stretch of DNA. So most commonly, SNPs are found in the DNA between genes. They can act as biological markers, helping scientists locate genes that are associated with disease. Hence, we want to look at our genetic risk. Our genes load the gun, our environment fires it. So if we can identify certain SNPs, we can see what our risks are possibly for certain disease states.
So Jan, I have a question here.
Diabetes, poor vitamin D metabolism.
So Jan, I have a question here. So when people get this DNA test and they look at some of their risks, is the reason why they're getting the test, is there something they can do to change that? Can they turn these genes off, or by knowing what their risks are, can they make them like not happen? Is that possible?
So correct, Pam. So basically we look at our risks, and our goal, obviously, nobody wants to develop a disease or a problem, but somebody might already have high cholesterol, and that is already turned on. But yes, our goal is to keep these genes off, if you will. So through the test, you will see individual sections describing individual snips, and you'll get a 30-page report, which we walk through in a 1-hour Zoom call after I were to receive the results. And we literally discuss the impact of those genes, whether there's impact or not, and what exactly you can do to help keep those genes from turning on.
And on the plus side, are there some beneficial genes that help you in certain areas?
Yes. So you'll see when we go through the slides, it's going to say how you read your report. And sometimes we have genes that actually beneficially impact us. So say, for instance, I were to get this test done and we look at lipid metabolism, I might have a circle with a check mark at a certain lipid metabolism gene that might give me the gene that gives me a high HDL. People with high HDL or healthy cholesterol levels have a much less risk of developing coronary artery disease.
Makes sense.
All right. So we're looking at the SNPs, and we talked a little bit about genes, and just basically they all have a name. For instance, a gene on chromosome 7 that has been associated with cystic fibrosis is called cystic fibrosis transmembrane conductance regulator. Big words, right? So they call it the CFTR gene. So we look at nutritionally modifiable genes. We're not looking at medical modifiable genes, if you will. What is nutrigenomics? Nutrigenomics is the study of how genes and nutrition, our lifestyle, interact. So that's basically what DNA Health is looking at. So Nordic Laboratories is the company based out of Denmark that offers this DNA Health test. And what it does is it looks through several cellular pathways: methylation, oxidative stress, lipid metabolism, detoxification. How well does your body detoxify? Insulin sensitivity. How apt are you or at risk are you to develop diabetes per se? Inflammation. When we have a lot of inflammation in our bodies, that can lead to cellular change, cellular damage, that can affect the methylation processes and lead to a host of issues. Vitamin metabolism. Little old me is 100 and so many pounds, less than 120, I'll tell you that. So in general, I'm probably at risk for osteoporosis, but if my DNA health test shows me my vitamin metabolism, I might have a beneficial component and have a good vitamin D gene. So I know, for instance, my last vitamin D level was 60. But if I have that gene that says you don't produce enough vitamin D, and there's several genes that can tell you whether you're going to break down bone or not, then that would alert me to check my vitamin D more often, make sure I'm on my calcium every day, etc. So that's how this is kind of being utilized. Also looks at gluten and lactose intolerance, or food sensitivities, if you will. Vitamin A, caffeine, alcohol, gluten. So for instance, you might have 3 blue circles under the gluten genes, which would alert you to say, hey, if you are already feeling some bloating, gassiness, problems, and you see those 3 blue circles, you're at high risk for celiac disease. Not to say that you have it. There's a test for that, but it would alert you to say, yeah, maybe I should go on that gluten-free diet and see what my body feels like after 2 weeks. So these are good ways to just say, hey, this really is happening in your body, or potentially happening in your body. So why nutrigenomic testing? If you have concerns about family history of chronic diseases and lifestyle, coronary artery disease, high cholesterol, diabetes, yeah, the list goes on. Desire to improve general health and well-being. Identify priority areas that you may need support. You've tried everything under the sun, but hey, I didn't know that this methylation gene, I'm not making enough nitric oxide. What am I doing? I'm brushing my teeth with Crest and Colgate. Oh, that ruins the natural bacteria in my mouth, which I need to make nitric oxide, which I need to make all these methylation pathways work. Oh, something you probably never will think of. So then you get your targeted action, like we just discussed, as part of that holistic wellness plan. So these, once again, are the biochemical areas of the DNA health test. So do I need more sweet potatoes, carrots, because I don't process my vitamin A correctly because of my genes? This can help us understand that. So who will benefit from doing the DNA health test? And those that want improved longevity, targeted nutrition and lifestyle interventions. Individuals presenting with abnormal blood results. Your cholesterol's off. You were told that you have elevated homocysteine levels. You were told that you have an elevated HSC reactive protein, which also looks for inflammation in the body. Or you have altered serum nutrient levels. Somebody checked your B12 level and it's low, or your folic acid level is low. Those with chronic fatigue, fibromyalgia, gut issues, people with mental health concerns, mood, cognition, attention, family history of chronic disease of lifestyle, cardiovascular disease, cancer, diabetes, metabolic syndrome, which is basically prediabetes, osteoporosis, periodontitis. It's a tongue twister. So, yep, this is how you're going to read your report with myself. This little empty circle is no impact. That gene's not having a major impact. So will we discuss it much? No. Low impact. We're going to mostly touch on moderate and high impact. And your report will have a nice summary on what to focus on, possibly other tests to look at. Like we want to test, we don't want to guess. And interventions that we can certainly, individualize. And then here's that beneficial impact. So for instance, this is an MTHFR gene, methyl tetrahydrofolate reductase. This is really involved in the homocysteine, the inflammation in the body and the methylation part that can lead to coronary artery disease. You could see this person had 3 blue circles, which is a higher gene impact. So we would discuss that further. And then this just kind of gives you the example of methylation process. The B vitamins are your building blocks for growing cells, constantly being renewed. Methylation is cellular pathways. They are very important in cellular processes. But this is just kind of an example of what a report would look like on the gene names that they test. Methyl groups are commonly, but not limited to, DNA, RNA, chemicals, lead, aluminum, neurotransmitters and hormones, estrogen, dopamine, serotonin. A lot of those are in our mental state. If we don't have enough serotonin or dopamine, we might be overly depressed or no energy. So you can see if you're feeling fatigued, do I have a methylation issue? This is a busy map, but what I want to take home from this is these are 5 areas that methylation takes care of. Mutations anywhere in this pathway can compromise critical functions in the body. So the nice thing about this test, we can find out if you carry certain genetic SNPs that might affect 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, what area in your body and what can we do about it? And this is just an example of one of the enzymes in the methylation pathway. And it is associated with neurotransmitters, dopamine, epinephrine, and norepinephrine. And then, so your key interventions, is what we get to. So you may want to increase your soluble fiber, manage the type of dietary fat, lose weight, increase exercise. So it also, if you look below, this is then the recommendation. Because of this methylation gene SNP and maybe others that were associated in this, this is just a sample of one. And this is our recommendation. Based on the genes tested in this methylation panel, your genotype combination contributes towards an increased risk for decreased methylation processes, increased homocysteine levels, which remember is inflammation, causes inflammation in the body, and makes this a high priority area. And then here's your interventions: B vitamin rich foods, emphasis on B2, B6, B9, B12. The internet is a fantastic source, as so are many others. I got my vitamin minerals Bible. I can just open up. Here's my sources of folic acid. Here's my sources of B12. And I'm happy to share all that with you during your review. Supplementation with a B complex that contains this substance may be recommended. It's all about discussion and individualization. And this is just another point down here: ensure adequate magnesium intake. So some people, they're on, I'm going to take a B complex, a vitamin E, a folate, a fish oil, a vitamin D, a magnesium, a zinc, a this, a that. If you know your genetic SNPs, if you don't have any methylation issues, you might not have to supplement with all those. So this is a great thing to identify your own individual setup.
Yeah. From what I've taken from this, Janet, it really helps you rather than to take the whole gamut of everything. This way, this tells you what you need and what you don't. So it's very pinpointed, it's very, targeted to what you actually need. And maybe you're taking things that you really don't need.
And what I find I've done, through consultations, I can really create a big picture for patients, because they might say, Janet, they've told me I have cholesterol. I got to do something about it. They're giving me 6 months. They'll tell me A, B, C, and I can turn around and give them a big picture. And I'm like, well, you're high on your inflammation categories, so you should have your HSCRP checked and maybe this checked and that checked. And they take that then to their primary care provider and say, hey, this would be very helpful for me because of A, B, C. And then they test, they don't guess. If their HSCRPs are low and they're not showing testing for that high inflammation, then they go to their lifestyle interventions. And by God, I'm not going to let that inflammation take hold of my body. I'm going to do something about it. So basically, understanding your impact factors, you want to know the importance of that gene in the pathway, which we'll share with you, the strength or the amount of the research for a specific SNP, and the significance of the SNP's effect on a given type, taking into account environmental interventions. So this is another example, the ApoE gene. And you don't have to remember it, but this person had a 3 blue circle. What does that mean? The significance of SNPs effect on a given phenotype, taking into account the environment. The conclusion from research on these important genes: number one, the ApoE2 type can increase triglycerides. When one's triglycerides are elevated, that can lead to pancreatitis, inflammation of the pancreas, diabetes. The ApoE4 shows increased risk for raised LDL, low density lipoprotein, or lousy cholesterol. That's why we put people on statins, VLDL and total cholesterol, cardiovascular disease, and late onset Alzheimer's disease. So if you have this ApoE4, we talk about, hey, what is your impact? Are you a 1 blue, a 2 blue, or a 3 blue circle? And what do we have to do about it? What future testing do we have to keep in mind? So like the ApoE4, basically this says may require more omega-3 type fatty acids and really need to avoid smoking, smoked foods, charred foods, and sedentary lifestyle because they have risk of all these disease processes. Why does Nordic Laboratories choose certain SNPs? Bottom line, the environment can be modified, resulting in a positive effect. Gene expression is modifiable by environmental factors such as diet and lifestyle. This should also be measurable. Impact of clinical interventions to modify expression of genes and effects of variants should be measurable by laboratory assays, biochemistry, and other biomarkers. So Nordic Laboratories really took a lot of time in identifying which SNPs are actually beneficial to study and what can we do about them. And this is just basically showing you a summary of a report and then the biological area and the priority based on your testing. This is just another example of somebody's report. You can see they have an awful lot of issues in inflammation and oxidative stress. And they're very poor vitamin D processor B12. So in this patient, this is going to be a big conversation on prevention of osteoporosis, prevention of cardiovascular disease. What are their lipids doing? What is their CRP in their body? SED rate, these specific lab tests that your primary care doctor does that can also coincide with, you do have a lot of inflammation. And then this, once again, is the recommendation. And it explains it right out. Next step. Here's where I tell somebody, depending on their priority level, hey, ask your doctor. You should maybe have an insulin level, a high sensitivity C-reactive protein, a hemoglobin A1C, which looks at your blood sugar over a 3-month period of time. A lot of times when you get your lab work with your doctor, you might get a complete metabolic panel that shows your blood sugar over a second period, which it might be 96, but your hemoglobin A1C might be 6.4, which is 1/10 of a point away from diagnosis of diabetes. So this is an awesome way to identify what can be looked at in the future as well. So basically, we look at 3 key biological areas, 3 key lifestyle diet interventions, possibly 3 key nutraceutical recommendations, and possibly further tests. And this is another busy slide. I'm basically showing you this as the oxidative stress. If we have a lot of oxidative stress, we might need more L-arginine, or we might not be making enough serotonin and dopamine. We might need vitamin E if certain parts of our pathway is off. You could see where iron and zinc and copper and selenium, vitamin C and E take place in our oxidative stress pathways. So if we have a lot of oxidative stress SNPs, then we're going to be talking about how to reduce that by using more antioxidant lifestyle tips. For instance, cofactors in foods for antioxidant enzymes. These enzymes are all in the oxidative stress pathway. We look at genetic SNPs here. You don't have to memorize this, but look, each of them has a lifestyle intervention. And I know superoxide dismutase is so important to decrease oxidative stress. And melons are one of my favorite fruit. I feel sorry for people that don't like melons. But anywho, so these are things you learn with me if you go through your DNA health test, and really what is important to your lifestyle, and really what foods should I be eating. And this is just a basic overall summary. And we're not going to go through this because we went through a lot of samples. So basically, a lifetime of optimal health awaits you. Start with the DNA health test. There are other testing opportunities depending on your history. But yeah, for today's discussion, starts right here, DNA health. So thank you, Pam, for the opportunity to offer this great wellness, functional medicine.
It's amazing. And I think that it gives you so much information about what you can do. It just makes you feel empowered. It makes you feel more in control to be able to know what specifically you need to work on, instead of just saying, okay, so anyone can eat a healthy diet. And so, okay, but maybe you still need more of this or more of that, or different types of food. So in eating that healthy, maybe you need a certain, type of healthy food or fruits or veggies or certain things. So I think it's great. I think it's really great to know. I'm excited to share this with everybody. So I just want everyone that's watching this video to know that in the video description, I will have Janet's website and how to get a hold of her. And the next step, Janet, would be just to reach out. And on your website, do you have a place where they can fill in for a consultation?
Yeah, right up on the banner. It says Nutrigenomic DNA testing. They can read more about it. If anybody has any individual questions, they could reach out via email. If they want a introductory Zoom meet with me, because we don't have to be right down the street from each other nowadays, we can certainly set that up, and they would just contact me and let me know what they're looking for.
Awesome. All right. Well, we will put that out there in the description. Again, Janet, thank you so much. This is a great presentation. It's so worth a while. If you're interested in health and wellness, this is such an integral part of another important piece of the puzzle in being well. So Janet, I thank you very much. And we will have this video up so that everyone can take a look. And thanks everyone for watching. Take care.
Thank you.